All right, welcome back. Again, we simply went over factoring. Again, this is just a continuation. If you look at the previous video, okay, I actually solved number 9 for you. Okay, so now I'm gonna go ahead and do 11, and I want you to do 10 and 12 as you're watching the video as homework. Again, come in tomorrow with questions. Those are the questions I'm looking for. Okay. I don't want those the simple questions. Mr. Mira, how do you do number 10? How do you do number 12? Okay, I want you to simply do your homework. Try it if you get stuck. Those are the questions that I want. Mr. Mira, I got stuck in this spot right here. Can you show us how to do it? Okay. Let's go ahead and do 11. Z to the 8 minus 16. Okay. If you ask yourself, okay, can we do box method? So you ask yourself, do you have a first term? Yes. Do you have a last term? Yes. So you want to do box method. There is no 8th power formula. There is nothing like that. That's why I like box method, because it works. Okay, here we go. Bring down the first term. Bring down the last term. Remember, you want to cross multiply to check. But there's nothing in the middle, so you want 0. Okay? Therefore, everything in here has to be the exact same thing on this side, has to be the same thing on this side. The only difference is that it has to be opposite in sign. What I mean by that, one has to be positive, one has to be negative, in order for you to get 0. Okay? All right. So how do we get z to the 8? Z to the 8 will be z to the 4th, z to the 4th. Okay. Oh, and remember, your answers always go this way. That confuses a lot of students because you're cross-checking and they think your answers go this way, but that's wrong. The only reason we do this is so that we check to get the middle term. Okay. All right. Negative 16. How did we get negative 16 where you multiply the same number? The only number that works is negative 4 and positive 4. And when you cross-multiply, we get 4 z to the 4 minus 4 z to the 4, which gives you 0. So we're done. Okay. All right, so my answer is z to the 4th power minus 4, z to the 4th power plus 4. Now, the bad thing with this is that we have to do box method again. Because again, we have z to the 4 and negative 4. Okay? When you multiply a number, the same number gives you z squared. Negative 4 is positive 2 and negative 2. Okay? So, I'm going to have you do that for homework, okay? Or while you're doing this, try to see where I came up with this. Okay. How did I come up with this? Okay? From this. So this right here turns into both of these. Okay? I'll get you started. You have to do box method. Okay? And you're going to notice that it actually, you could factor it out. So your final answer is this. Okay? So again, they're getting progressively harder because again, we're almost done with the lesson. Okay? So they're a little bit challenging. So again, you're having a lot of practice with box method. If you choose grouping, go ahead and choose grouping, but we didn't have 4 terms here, so I couldn't group. Okay. All right, go ahead and try to figure this out. If you don't get it, then ask me tomorrow. If not, go ahead and try 10 and 12. Okay. Let's go ahead and solve. All right, so the last 4 examples, we're actually gonna solve this. We're not doing anything different. We're just adding an extra step. So you're gonna notice that there's gonna be a number here, 0. So that means we have to actually solve for the letters that are given to us. In this case, we're solving for Z, X, Y, all the letters in the alphabet. Okay. All right. Here we go. So find the real number solutions of the equation. Okay, I give you the hint already. This one is already solved for us because it's 0. If it's not 0, you have to make it 0, simply by moving it over. Again, here's another rule of thumb. If you don't know what rule of thumb means, it simply means that every time you encounter that type of problem, the rule of thumb is you want to keep doing it that way. Okay? So the rule of thumb for these type of problems is you want to move everything to the left so that you're consistent. Okay? So let's go ahead and do number 13. Alright, so again, this is negative 12. How do I make it into 0? You add 12 to both sides. This is gone. So I'm left with x to the 4th minus 7x squared plus 12 gives me 0. Okay. And now that I have everything on one side, now I could go through the list. Box method, GCF, grouping, and cubic formulas. Okay. So in this case, I have 3 terms. I'm going to go ahead and do box method. Remember that our answers go this way. These are known as our factors. Okay. And we want to check that when you cross multiply, that's why I have it in red, your answer that you want is negative 7x squared. Okay? All right, here we go. So we want to square. So how do we get x to the 4th into square? X squared, x squared. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and list all the possible factors of 12. Remember, we start with the positive, but we want the negative. So we want to focus on the negative side. Okay. So we have negative 1 times negative 12. Okay. Negative 2 times negative 6. Negative 3 times negative 4. And since negative 4 is next, it's already up there. So the one I'm going to use is the last one. Negative 3 times negative 4. Okay. All right, when I cross multiply, I get negative 4x squared minus 3x squared gives me 7x squared. Okay. So now I know my factors. Okay. All right, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the middle board just because I ran out of room. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and put the answers. So far I've gotten x squared minus 4, x squared minus 3. Okay. Alright, so these are the answers to the problem that was 13. X to the 4th minus 7x squared plus 12 equals 0. Alright, so let's see if you remember the trick. It's an x squared, it's negative 4. So one number out there, when you multiply it 2 times, gives you negative 4, the same number. So negative 2, positive 2. So that means you have to keep going. Okay. 3, we're actually done, so we don't have to do nothing here. So that means I have to do box method again. So at this point, you're probably done with box method, but again, the reason I like it is because it works. Okay. And again, if you haven't heard that term before, if it ain't broken, don't fix it. Here. I found a method, okay? It works all the time. Let's go ahead and use it. Well, not all the time. 98%, 99% of the time. So how do we get x squared? X times x. How do we get negative 4? Negative 2. Positive 2. Okay. Sorry if I added 0 here. And when I cross multiply, check that you get 2x minus 2x gives me 0. Okay. Alright, so let's go ahead and finish this off. So we have 2 answers. Okay? We have x plus 2, x minus 2, And again, don't forget the one up here. X squared minus 3. And again, they're all equal to 0. Alright. So we have to actually solve for x. Okay? So, zero product property says we have x plus 2 equal to 0, x minus 2 equal to 0, and x squared minus 3 equal to 0. So we have to solve all three of these. Okay? And the reason we have x squared here is because if you look up here, degree 4 means you have 4 solutions, up to 4 solutions. Okay? So here we go. Subtract 2 here. Okay? Here, add 2. Here, we have to add 3, and then we're left with x squared equals 3. Okay? This is what we've seen in chapter 4 when we solve quadratics. You have to take the opposite of a square is a square root. Okay? And if you forgot, the reason a square root works is because there's a 2 on the outside. People don't put it there. It's something that you should know. The 2's cancel each other out. So we're left with x equals plus or minus. The reason it's plus or minus is because we're actually introducing the square root, okay? But if you think about it, it's x squared. Anytime there's an x squared, whether you plug in a negative or positive, it's always gonna come out as positive, okay? And what is the square root of 3? Well, it's not a nice number, so I want you to leave it as square root of 3, okay? So we're done. Here are your 4 answers. Negative 2, positive 2, plus or minus radical 3. Okay. All this work and we finally got to our answers. Okay. So again, I'm telling you, the problems are going to get progressively harder. We're actually solving, so it takes much longer. Okay. So negative 2, positive 2, plus or minus radical 3. Okay. This is how you solve polynomials. Alright, so hopefully you got this down, okay? Let's go ahead and continue. Alright, so let's go ahead and do problem 16. We have x to the 5th minus 8x cubed equals negative 12x. Alright, so again, you want to go down the list, box method, GCF, grouping, and cubic formulas. Okay? So if you look at it, it's not box method because you don't have a last term. And first, we have to actually move that 12x over. So, first step, move it over. Remember, rule of thumb, you want to move everything over to the same side. X to the 5th minus x cubed plus 12x gives you 0. Okay. Alright, so let's go ahead and take out an x. We have x in common. So it's x to the 4th minus 8x squared plus 12 gives you 0. Okay. Now we have 3 terms, so I'm going to go ahead and use box method. Okay. Bring down the first term. Sorry. Positive 12. Remember, when you cross multiply, you want your answers to be negative 8x squared. Okay. Alright, how do you get x to the 4th? X squared, x squared. Remember, your answers go this way, horizontally. Now, if you think about it, we need to get 12, but it has to be negative. So here we go again. Negative 1 times negative 12, negative 2 times negative 6, okay? negative 3 times negative 4. But in this case, it's going to be negative 2 and negative 6. All right, so again, I'm going to move to the middle board. But before I get there, I'm going to actually copy this line, and then my answers. So you know where I'm going from. Okay. So, x to the 5th minus 8x cubed plus 12x gives me 0. I factor out an x. I got x to the 4th minus 8x squared plus 12 gives me 0. All right, so I just did box method over here. And I got x squared minus 2, so that's where it came from. So we have x squared minus 2, x squared minus 6. All right, so we're solving. Don't forget the 0, so it's x equal to 0, comma. X squared minus 2 is equal to 0, comma. X squared minus 6 is equal to 0. Okay? The first one is done. That's what's nice. Okay? Here we have to add 2 to both sides. X squared is equal to 2. Take the square root. So x is equal to plus or minus radical 2. Okay? Here, I add 6 to both sides. X squared is equal to 6. Okay. Take the square root on both sides again. I'm left with x plus or minus radical 6. Okay. All right, so I'm going to write all my answers up here in one line. First one, 0. Second one, plus or minus radical 2. Third one, radical 6. Why do we have 5 answers? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Because, if you look, the degree is equal to 5. Okay? Alright, so again, these take a while. Hopefully, you get a chance to practice them. If not, then ask me questions. Okay? Make sure you're doing your homework. Alright, so let's go ahead and show you what your homework is, and then we're done. Alright, so I solved 13 for you, I solved 16 for you. Go ahead and try 14 and 15. Okay? Again, if you have questions, let me know. Ask me tomorrow in class. But here is your homework for 5.4. Okay. Go to the textbook, 3 to 8, 13 to 23, 26 to 29, 32 to 40, 42 to 50, all of them. Okay? Alright. So that's it, guys. Tune in next time. We're going to go over rational, I think it's rational functions. No, that's chapter 6, sorry. Well, next section is 5.5. Tune in. Mr. Mira out.